Our next speaker is someone who was an academic, who lost his job and position at the University of London for writing an article about the historical events that occurred during the middle of the last century. He's one of those brave souls who follows the truth wherever it may lead. He's a staunch campaigner for open debate on many, many issues, including 9/11, the London tube bombings, and invasion of Iraq, Libya, Syria, etc. Now, recently he gained worldwide fame on the internet for handing himself into a police station, saying, "I'm an extremist! I'm an extremist! Arrest me, arrest me!" And the policeman said, "Well, not today, please. No. Perhaps once this new law's been passed, we might do that, you know." So, and he's got a new book out. New book there we are. Breaking the Spell. Breaking the codes, breaking the spell. Please put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Nicholas Kollerstrom.
Thank you, Jez. Yes, a privilege to be speaking to you today, and I'm thrilled to see this book for the first time. Guillermo Rudolph has published it, Castle English publisher, and I think it's the one British revisionist textbook you can buy now. I think this is the one British book really on the subject, since the one many years ago, Did 6 Million Really Die? Short booklet. Can you hear me at the back?
Very well.
Right. Okay, we heard stirring political speeches. We can just get a more calm mood for scientific inquiry. As the great Dean of Modern Revisionism, Theresa, has said, revisionism is a quest for historical exactitude. So it's not part of a political campaign. This is a universal human issue. Do we want to live without blame and guilt and endless kowtowing to British atrocity stories from the last World War? Can we be allowed to investigate what really happened without being put in jail? Or on a small scale, can you chat with your friends in the pub about this without them storming you off and leaving you and saying, "Oh God, this was a whatever"? But as if people in this country have padlocked minds. And my book is very much concerned with finding ways of talking about the subject without ruining your friendships and have people storming off. I insist that my position here is non-political. My mother was a chemist, and I became fascinated once I discovered the rather simple fact that wherever cyanide was used in the labour camps of World War II, it soaked right into the walls. And it bonded with the iron there, and it's still there, 60 years later. So if you want to know where was cyanide used in World War II, very simple, you just go and chip away at the walls. And I noticed that the two main people who'd done this, Fred Lloyd and Guillermo Rudolph, both been sort of put in jail or had their careers ruined, terminated by doing this. And then on the 20th anniversary of Fred Lloyd giving his testimony at the Zundel trial, I myself had a similar experience in April 2008, being suddenly thrown out of my college. Suddenly I'm being vilified and damned. And everyone said to me, "Well, what an idiot, why don't you use a pseudonym? Why do you put your own name on these articles on the Coder website?" Well, why did I? That's a good question. I guess it's my life, and I wanted to sort of put my name to whatever it was I was doing. And I majored in history of science, got 2 degrees in history of science, specifically because I believe we're a science-based society and we need some critique of scientific issues. And this is exactly the sort of thing I think science historians ought to be looking at. The simple chemical evidence of how many tons of zyklon were used in German labour camps from about some 1942 onwards. Were they used to kill bugs, or were they used to kill Jews? Were they used to save lives in hygiene technology, or were they used to take lives in homicidal technology? Were people put into the gas chambers, or were clothes put into the gas chambers? Can we be allowed to talk about this? Okay. And the chemistry is astonishingly simple in the answer. You've got an enormous differential of the background levels in the kitchens, and so on, where zyklon was used maybe once or twice a year to kill bugs. It was used to kill the bugs, right? And the alleged human gas chambers have exactly the same background level, whereas the delousing chambers have the very, very high saturation levels of the cyanide. And they got blue, they glow with a lovely turquoise blue in the walls, because that's where the cyanide was really, really used. Okay? So at Nuremberg you get this astonishing amnesia, acts of collective amnesia, whereby the world forgets about this normal humdrum, absolutely normal humdrum hygiene technology, and you get it replaced by DDT after the war. See, that's what everybody thinks now. So to kill bugs, use DDT, and it forgets about what was used for about 40 years. Normal, you have the granules of Zyklon, warm them slightly, cyanide comes off, they kill the bugs, it kills the bugs. That was normal technology about 40 years. Okay, and I discovered as a science historian that looked through all journals, history of technology journals, history of science journals. Why is no one allowed to mention this or review or comment on this delousing technology? Okay, at Nuremberg, as I'm sure you're all aware, merely producing a can of Zyklon was enough to indicate some ghastly human extermination procedure. Okay, so I can give you a concise definition of Holocaust denial. If you believe that ordinary normal hygiene technology worked in an ordinary normal manner, you are a Holocaust denier. That's the core meaning of the term. Okay, that the Zyklon tin was used as per the what's written on the can. That's the essential meaning that people nowadays call Holocaust denial. This delousing insecticide was used as it was supposed to be used. That's the terrible heresy that cannot be discussed anywhere, except on the web, of course. You can't stop people doing that on the web, but it cannot go in print anywhere, except with vilifying somebody as far right, hating this and that, and so on. So we need to get that into the realm of acceptable discourse. I'm quite happy to do any replication if we can get any interest in resampling the walls, measuring the cyanide. There hasn't been any, like 30 years since the 80s when those samples were done. I'm quite happy to do that again. David Cole has come out with some rather misleading comments in his new book about this, but I think this is something testable. We can do science on this. Okay. Anyway, I discovered that I was becoming fairly universally vilified from 2008. I was thrown out this, thrown out that. Somebody politely told me that I was the most heavily vilified person since David Irving, so I just had to sort of accept that and try and figure out why we couldn't discuss the matter. All the web things vilifying my name couldn't actually say what I'd done. Nobody was allowed to say what I'd done. I actually integrated the different chemical investigations to get a pool of data from which we could make valid deductions. Okay, each of the different surveys had weaknesses, like to Rudolph, but you put them together. That's where the strength of the argument comes from. Okay, moving quickly on. I then met one or two revisionists. Not here today. I always remember a guy. It's quite hard to get to meet them. He met me in the pub in Highbury, the Benanca, where the punk rock thing had begun. So I met a real revisionist in front of me, and he said to me, "Yes, tragically, of the 4 million Jews under control in all of Nazi area of Europe, 6 million died and only 5 million survived." So I guess that's the hollow maths that kids are told at school. This is the subject more heavily taught in our schools today than any other subject at all. It's rammed down the throats of the poor kids. They're taught how to hate with this message. Okay, so we got together, put up a website, whatreallyhappened.info, and then I got an interest in from this chap Nick Terry, who lecturer at Exeter, and he's the only historian, obviously he's paid by Israeli sources to do his stuff for himself, but he will dialogue with revisionists, okay? And he mentioned the decrypts, British intelligence decrypts at Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park, which is now in Kew Garden, it's the public record office, okay? So I went along to check these out, and it was a terrific thrill because they'd only just been declassified in the mid-90s. They were top secret for 50 years, okay? And Britain had broken the codes at Bletchley Park. Everyone knows that in World War II. We'd find out what German submarines were doing. But the strange silence over the fact that we were listening in to the German labour camps for a whole year, 12 months, going amazing detail record. Now these are the most authentic, most primary source records you could possibly have of what Germany was doing in the labour camps, supposedly while the Holocaust was going on. And why don't historians allude to it? Oh, well, these messages have no trace whatever of any Holocaust going on. Not the faintest hint of it. They're just describing different groups moving around, very valuable arithmetic counting, and people would come and go every day. You've got totals living in the different camps, and you've got the attempt to get useful labour out of them. What kind of work could they do? That's a very central question. So that's the prime focus of these decrypts. The different groups who have to mingle together, especially Auschwitz, a huge camp with 4 different main groups: Poles, Russians, Germans, German political prisoners, and Jews. And Jews are about 40% or so, and less Jews than Catholics at Auschwitz. And it's of interest to compare those data from the election decrypts with the death books, which the Russians got. That's totally authentic. They went after the war, got the death books, and the only person with the guts to mention this was David Irving. He wrote a letter to the Times or something saying, "Oh, reassuringly, deaths weren't as large as had been feared." Russia put out the 4 million figure, 4 million dead at Auschwitz soon after the war, and then finally the death books, you get the figure 100 times less than that. 29,000 Jews died at Auschwitz. That's the mortality in death books. Now you can say why that needs to be pushed up a bit. Oh, there's missing data here, or people want to double it. They say, oh, look, there's unregistered Jews as well as registered, so we're going to double it. Or they want to multiply it by 20 or whatever. No. From the British decrypts, you've got a comment on the proportion of unregistered people in the camps in Auschwitz. About 10% are unregistered. So I take that as the figure. Your number of registered, the famous tattoo on their arm, they are counted and registered. I take about 10% as unregistered of the Jews passing through the camps generally. We shouldn't allude to the Jews because the Russians and the Poles are just as interesting and important in these camps. But obviously that's where the main focus of interest is. So that 29,000 dead at Auschwitz, you can push it up a bit. I don't think we'll go above 40,000 in World War II die at Auschwitz. And I think that's very compatible with the 290,000 total you get from the Elson archive. So I haven't got time to go into all these different sources, but that is a major big source. It's now called the ITS, International Register Service. They put down 3 occasions their total, the total number of people who deaths in all the camps. And they broke it down camp by camp, which makes it quite authentic. The first gave 270,000, and the last one was about 290,000. Again, you can add on 10% for unregistered if you want. I don't think you can double that figure. I think that is roughly the number. I think about 40% of Jews. So you've got about 170 or so thousand Jews die in the labor camps of World War II. They die primarily typhus, typhoid, and starvation. Yeah, thank you. Both the Elson archive and the death books give causes of death, and none of them ever mention any death by gassing. I mean, as the previous speaker said so well, there's no trace of any evidence for any existence of any gas chamber. Absolutely none. It's just a phantom hallucination, like the witches' Sabbaths that used to judge witches and people's witches in centuries gone by. There's no... oh yes, there's a beautiful simplicity argument. I have debates with my pal Jim Fetzer in America. He's a professor of logic, right? So he's got really good logic of pink and blue. Now just wait for this. This is totally without any numbers or figures, because a lot of people blank out when you talk about numbers, right? Deaths by cyanide, all gassing deaths are supposed to be mainly cyanide, partly carbon monoxide in the labyrinth. That is the story, isn't it? That has been the story half a century. Okay, what Wicked Nazis is. Now both of those have in common that the body ends up pink. That is the struggle, the final death struggle of the body. The oxygen cannot get out of the blood, and you end up with a pink corpse, right? Now, at Nuremberg, you get, it's always a blue colour, bodies of bluish colour, because their Femmexactylon B stands for Blau, which it probably didn't, and therefore maybe the bodies are blue. Well, no. Anyway, there's no hint of any pink bodies anywhere in a German labour camp. So that's really, really bad science. And also, there's no alleged human gas chamber which is blue. You simply can't get a blue colour in these, say the mock-up gas chamber or tourist go through Auschwitz, right, built after the war by Stalin. There's no blue colour anywhere in its walls. The blue is in the little delousing chambers out there in the field, Birkenau, that school kids are not taken to, right? How terribly sad to come all the way to Auschwitz and not be shown the gas chambers. I mean, not being shown the swimming pool was bad enough. A charming swimming pool, which I got a lot of trouble. I said it's elegant swimming pool. And it's been restored now. I think it is quite elegant, actually. But apparently the kids are not showing that in their visit. And likewise, they don't get to see the little delousing chambers. Anyway, I've given you a flavour now that the British intelligence decrypts, I think, are very much the key, because they're a totally British thing, they're totally authentic, nobody can question them, and I think they give a basis for calm, rational debate. Okay? And we need to insist this debate is not political, it's not about politics. I'm my own political background very much sort of CND, Green Party, anti-war, bit sort of vaguely left-wing. And then suddenly, and my mother used to be worried that I couldn't get jobs because I was far left, so if I did. And now suddenly everyone's telling me, oh no, I'm far right. And I feel we need to affirm this is a universal human issue. The German people have been settled with this claim, the ultimate transcendent, the ultimate meaning and achievement of British atrocity propaganda, which achieves a transcendental reached the transcendental plane of world religion, frankly turned into a new religion, which Holocaustianity, yeah, Holocaustianity, and it's a terrific reverence, and it's displacing the tired old religions of yesteryear, this compulsory new world religion. So I feel that my book is about a clash between science and religion. Science is rational knowledge, which can be achieved by evidence and calm debate, and religion is what the priest tells you you've got to believe. I think we need to conduct it in those terms. Joseph, if we've got time, I think I'd greatly appreciate any comments from the audience.
Okay, we've got time, yes. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Nick, on the subject of Holocaustianity as Holocaust as a new religion for us all.
Yeah.
In fact, one prominent rabbi, I don't know the name, you might know his name, Richard, maybe you do, Nick, has stood up and said that, in fact, Christ is passé now because the defining case of human suffering is now the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Christ's suffering is down there now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think there is an analogy here that
Yes.
in the Christian religion,
Yes.
I know you're a bit unbelievable, but the Christian religion, a God dies, passes through death, and then mysteriously comes back again and confers a blessing. Whereas in the Jewish religion, 6 million Jews tragically die, then they come back again to take the cash. Confer universal guilt on us all. Yeah.
Second question. Yeah.
Well,
Please.
the thing that shoots this down is, for comment, is that Jews said that the Holocaust was a price worth paying for the creation of Earth-Sax Israel. Now you can't say that, as they did, and it's all documented, even sought help from Hitler. You can't on the one hand say you support the Holocaust because it's going to help Israel, and then complain about it.
Yeah.
And this is on the record, I'm sure
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's a valid comment. Yeah, thank you for that comment.
Sure.
Yeah. Any questions?
Back there, there's a question in blue jumper. Was a question? No, not anymore. Okay, chap with
How long are this establishment going to be able to get away with these abominable lies? We've had it for 70 years now. Can anyone sort of look into a crystal ball and say when it's all going to reach the bottom? When it's going
All
to
I can tell you is this group is the only group where we could possibly discuss this subject. I don't think there's anyone else at all, whatsoever. Is there? So let's just hope that let's hope that some forum for discussion does break out.
You could discuss it at Bishop Middleton's house in Button Broadstairs. We have mass every Sunday.
Yes, Richard.
I myself think that due to the bravery of various traditionalists campaigning for truth in history, I think the Holocaust lie is breaking up. And I'll give you a specific example. When Ernst Zundel was in trial in Germany, very, very brave man, he was given a 5-year prison sentence. Now, he had a team of very brave lawyers, and one of the brave lawyers that he had was a woman lawyer called Sylvia Stolz.
Yeah.
And she persisted in her defense of Ernst Zundel in the court in Mannheim, and the judge said to her, if I may expand a bit, yeah? The judge said to her, Fräulein Stolz, if you persist in doing this, I will have you arrested. And she said, Your Honour, I am a German judge, I have sworn to uphold the German constitution, I have all my qualifications, I'm entitled to be a judge here, I'm entitled to be a lawyer here, and I'm entitled to defend my client, Ernst Zundel. And she persisted in her vigorous defence of her client, Ernst Zundel, on trial for denying the Holocaust, of course, and the judge said, arrest that woman, and a big beefy German warderess, about 6 foot tall, big woman, and Sylvia Stolz is about 5'3", I suppose, and the big beefy German warderess went over to Sylvia Stolz in the courtroom, picked her up and carried her out. In the court there was about a...
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Well, can I continue? I want to finish it.
No, actually, no. Thank you for that point. It's reminiscent of the what happened in the witch trials when any judge would defend witches or be lenient, would themselves be accused of being accomplices of Satan. And I think there's an exact parallel with that. Okay. In terms of your suggestion that the tide might be turning, I had that suggestion around the year 2010. I got an impression, simply from looking at... my advice is, whenever a media story comes up about the Holocaust, goes on the web, don't read the article, just read the comments, okay? Comments are what's important. And my impression is that since... When I was sort of, chucked out, and when Bishop Williams was chucked out, everyone was absolutely aghast and horrified, and you looked at all these sort of damnations. And now, the tide has turned, I think. Since around about 2010, you get a large majority of sceptical comments on websites, and I think that's the best indication we have of world opinion. And I asked people why they thought this was, and they said it's because of what Israel's done in Gaza.
Yeah.
People are so fed up.
Wonderful.
Final question at the back there.
On the, which
Okay, two final questions. You first, then you.
After you, sir.
Thank you. On the subject of Israel's conduct in Gaza, I noticed that sales of Holocaust revisionist literature are increasing in Middle Eastern countries or in traditionally Islamic countries. What do you think in terms of the rise of Holocaust skepticism amongst Arabic and Islamic nations?
Well, I'd rather keep this non-political, actually.
Was that a political question? I just...
well, obviously, I'm glad to hear about it. But I can't enlighten you much about it, I'm afraid.
Final question.
Yeah. On the subject of the tide turning, Nick, do you think that we will be able to maintain in this country our exception from the Europe-wide tide of laws against so-called Holocaust denial? You'll be aware that we already have our iniquitous race laws that restrict freedom of speech. You'll also be aware that there's been debate within the last week over the status of the European arrest warrant in this country, and that the authorities in this country managed to evade a precise definition of that European arrest warrant in relation to Holocaust law by throwing in the towel in the case of Dr. Frederick Tobin a few years ago, because they feared a precedent being set in the higher courts that would definitively defend so-called Holocaust denial in this country. Do you think that freedom of speech on this issue will survive in this country?
Well, there's a very deep feeling for freedom of speech going back to Magna Carta in this country. It's something very, very deep-rooted. I'm not saying anyone involved in this. I venture to suggest, I've got an appendix about Holocaust laws in Europe that you might find useful. But I fear my answer to this slightly important question is rather inadequate. Would someone else like to comment on it at all?
Well, we haven't got time, I'm afraid. Simon Side waits for no man.
Can I say a quick thing? Theresa May's recent pronouncements about making extremist material illegal does not simply apply to anything Islamic. It's across the board. If you disagree with liberal democracy, if you disagree with the orthodoxy, you are an extremist. And her pronouncements, her stated intention to bring these laws into force is saying, well, here are these Muslim extremists and these laws will conveniently apply to anyone who disagrees with us. So there are stirrings in Westminster to make this an actuality, but to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't happened yet. So we'll use the time we have.
So, we're all extremists now. Yes? And bravery is the highest virtue. Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale. The emperor has no clothes.
Exactly.
The emperor is naked. Those who say this are guilty of a new crime. Emperor's new clothes denial. Yes? And one of the bravest Emperor's new clothes deniers is Kollerstrom. Support the man!